Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome to episode 146 of Making It with me, your host, Terry Woolman. I really appreciate you joining us, and I encourage you to stay mindful and safe as we work together as a community to get through this global health pandemic. You can find all of our episodes on intertalkmedia.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or just go to terrywoolman.com/podcast. Also, please vote in our upcoming presidential election. Every voice matters, including yours. Check out my YouTube channel to view the new video of Beautiful Sound of Us, which we created to empower and encourage everyone to vote. The song features Donald Webber Jr. from the Broadway cast of Hamilton, new artist Ray Jupiter, and a virtual choir of over 30 singers, including 90-year-old Holocaust survivor Rose Schindler. I'd like to share my intention that inspires this podcast. Time passes quickly, and I've learned that we should do what's in our hearts and do it well without apologies or excuses. I encourage you to create your life and art in your own unique way and express your artistry with joy and abandon. Be willing to work uncompromisingly for what you believe in. Success will have a better chance of finding you when you live your life with integrity, focus, and passion. Be selfish with your discipline and selfless in your performance. And don't forget to have fun along the way. My guest today is artist, bassist, composer, Nathan East. Chances are you spent your whole life listening to Nathan East. You just never knew it until now. A founding member of the chart-topping contemporary jazz group Fourplay, Nate was 16 years old when he got his first break and found himself on the road with Barry White. The next time the phone rang, Quincy Jones was on the line. The calls kept coming, and for over 40 years, Nathan has been churning out hit songs with artists as legendary as Eric Clapton, Phil Collins, George Harrison, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Beyoncé, Barbra Streisand, Kenny Loggins, Anita Baker, Lionel Richie, Justin Timberlake, Stevie Wonder, and Babyface. That's just to name a few. Nathan East, welcome to Making It.
Thank you, Ted. Well, thank you for that beautiful introduction, and I'm speechless, but it's great to see you, and you know, we go back forever, right?
So. We sure do. And which makes this one of the most fun and easiest interviews that I've done. Even though I prepared for it and I've got some questions, I did a little more research on you to see what I could dig up. But we've been friends for a really long time, and I really value our friendship. It's one of the things that's most special to me in our music industry, that some of us who have just been doing this together for a long time, and it's pretty special.
Absolutely. And when I listen to your mission statement of what you're doing with the show, I couldn't agree more. It feels a lot like my mission statement, you know, and then peace, harmony, and love in the world, a very simple concept. And I think we wake up every day, you know, in an effort to work toward that mission.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things that we were talking about right before we started recording was again, the idea that harmony that you have dedicated your life to, you know, rhythm and harmony and joy. Harmony is not just about the harmony of music. It's about the harmony of the world.
Absolutely. And again, when you say relationships, I mean, I actually, even the club gig that I left in San Diego, I left on such good terms that if I ever had to go back to the Hilton Cargo Bar, I could do it, you know. And it's just I love relationships, you know, because that at the end of the day, and I think at the end of your life, you know, what matters most, I think, is the love and and camaraderie and friendship that you've developed. And you look, and these are the people that have been there with you the whole time. And God willing, they'll be with you, to the very end.
I had the pleasure of knowing your mom and dad, and I know most of your family as well. And I remember when I met your folks the first time, I asked if it would be okay if they adopted me.
Bless you.
Well, because they were, you come from a good family. And the beautiful thing is that it gave you the tools and the desire to create your good family. I see in you the teachings, the traditions, the intention that your parents had.
You're absolutely right, and they loved you, by the way, and of course, when you bring them up, and I think we were saying earlier that if our parents were still around, we'd be able to go to them in a time like this and ask for counsel and guidance, and also get their take on what's going on in the world today. Having been, and I know you do like I do. You speak with people that are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And I think everyone would agree that 2020 has been a very interesting year, to say the least, for the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we will be talking about that through this whole hour. I want to start by just reading a couple of quotes on you that I think kind of sum you up in a very clear way. One of them is just a quote that's on your website. The most famous person you don't know that you already know. Another quote is from Herbie Hancock. He is selfless. That is what is incredible about Nathan East. Winona Judd says, I love his spirit. Quincy Jones, he totally crushed it. My favorite quote is one of yours, Nate. I need to practice social distancing from the refrigerator.
Yeah, well, this is the most I've ever been home, I think, in my entire life. So usually I have a suitcase packed, and then so I just transfer the clothes from one to another. And literally, this is the longest. I mean, I've discovered rooms that I didn't even know I had
in the
my
house
now. And to be actually honest, this year has been a blessing for me because it's provided the most quality time that I've ever had with my kids and family, and the longest stretch of time. And that's just given me a chance to just really solidify the relationship and the development of what we're here for. And I wouldn't have had it if we didn't have this quarantine lockdown situation. And normally I'm kind of apologetically running in and out the door, revolving door. Mm-hmm. On my way to London or Tokyo or somewhere far away. And I have to say one of the silver linings of 2020 has been the quality time that I get to spend with my family.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. And it's what I wanted to lead this conversation with, was my observation that this is probably the longest time you've ever spent at home, especially since you have made your family and your kids were born. And right. I thought that the answer would be what you just said, because I know that you've been spending some really beautiful time with Anita and with your kids. Can you just briefly talk about your family? Because you've known your wife for a really long time. You, like me, we both knew our spouses for years before we married them. But we were friends with them first, which was kind of cool. And also, both of your kids, you have traveled with for sporting events or music events together. So can you talk about family a little bit more for a moment before we talk about music?
Well, absolutely. And by the way, thanks for bringing up mom and dad, because any chance to talk about them just puts a smile on my face, because they really, they raised 7 kids. And they really, I think, as I'm a parent now, this is, they were the model for me, and I'm trying to do at least half the job that they did, and they came up through rough times. And I'll never forget my mother's line was always, when we needed money for lunch or whatever, is okay, this is the last button on Gabriel's coat, like she would. I thought, boy, Gabriel's coat has a lot of buttons. but it's like, I'm thinking how challenging it is to raise 2 children. But when you think about raising 7 children, it's just amazing. And again, they they were always very supportive of me and welcomed all my friends. And so, again, I'm just trying to use them as a role model for the way I'm raising my kids. And I was blessed with two beautiful souls, Sarah and Noah. They're both very conscientious, talented, but the most important thing is they both have really good hearts. And for me, that's one of the biggest things. They're kind, they're considerate, they're passionate about what they're doing. And so, again, this kind of has been a disruption. They're at UC Berkeley in their junior year now, and taking classes online. So the whole pandemic has been a disruption of what normal college life would be, which we know is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, again, I think this 2020 is going to go down in history as one of the years that everybody faced certain challenges. I felt so heartbroken for people that have gone through, they were in their fourth year and were graduating this year and couldn't graduate, from either high school or college or wherever after putting all that work in. So it's developing a stronger, I think, and a different kind of human being. And so again, we're just trying to be as supportive as we can, and I'm loving having this time, just to be with my peeps.
Yeah, they must be loving having their dad and husband around every day. It's pretty special. It's pretty special. I think when we're older, looking back on this will be one of the diamonds of the experience, is the time that we've all gotten to spend self-reflecting and connecting with our family and friends.
Yeah, and the balance between work and personal life is a very tricky one for us musicians, because nobody's really following us around with a pension plan. So when the call comes, you kind of got to go, and the old cliche, you got to make the hay while the sun is shining.
That's right.
But I remember early on when they were about 1-2 years old, and again, my career, tours have been a big part of it. And some of these tours are just so long,
Right.
And so for a 2-year-old to be away from home for a month must feel like a lifetime for them, And I'd come home and they had drawn pictures of the family, and I looked up and I wasn't in the picture, and that was like the biggest heartbreak. So, now I'm really, really, really taking advantage of this time to just get all the licks in that I haven't been able to get in in the past 20 years.
You were talking about college, Nate, and one of your college professors, and I don't remember his name, but he was very influential in having you fly the coop and leave San Diego to come up to LA. He told you that you were ready, that you didn't need any more school. Could you just talk about what that felt like to hear that, and if you were relieved or excited or all of the above when you just got in your car and headed north for your move?
Bert Turetsky is he's the contrabass guru at the university, and he's one of these guys that you just love being around because he's filled with so much wisdom. And I feel blessed to have had instructors and professors like him, Cecil Lytle, who led the jazz ensemble and the gospel choir. And to this day, these guys are dear friends of mine. And so it's almost like a parent, or your mentor saying, it's time, because I started the master's program there, and it's easy to become a professional student, and UCSD is the kind of environment that you just enjoy. It's right there in La Jolla, and the beach is down the street, and the environment is just wonderful. So I kind of was really getting used to, after I got my bachelor's, I started a master's program, and then he just looked at me and said, you know what, go to LA, make us proud, make money, and and do your thing, and that was really one of the most powerful pieces of advice, because it gave me kind of like, it put a little gas in my tank, and it gave me something to kind of move to LA with, a little bit of confidence, and I had a degree in my back pocket. I had my bass all tuned up and ready to go,
Mm-hmm.
So it was, I'll be forever grateful to him.
I can see why. That was wonderful advice. Speaking of community and long-term friendships, I know that there were a few people who reached their hand out to you, including Abraham Boreal, I believe,
Right.
to encourage and share work. And of course, the Barry White tour that you did was kind of
Right.
Was that your first big thing?
Yes, that was the first big, in playing in an arena with an orchestra and an artist that had #1 hit records. And that led to recording in the studio with him. And when I was asked to come in and record, that's where I think the big break came, because Gene Page was the arranger on those sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, Gene Page was doing everybody, Michael Jackson, Elton John, Whitney Houston. And so if you were in his good graces, he was responsible for a lot of work.
When you did your first big session with Gene, did you feel ready?
Absolutely.
Because recording is a different
Yeah.
environment than live performance.
Yeah.
Had you been recording on your own? Did you have a little 4-track TAC like I did and you were already doing things? Or did
Of course.
You? Okay, right.
Of course, but I'll never forget, because I wrote it. I kept a journal, and I'll never forget January 2nd, 1980, writing in my book, Hertz Rent-A-Car Jingle, Gene Page, and on the session, it was I think James Gadsden was on drums. I think Lee Ritenour, and all the LA session cats were in there. And the thing I felt comfortable about it, because he wrote some pretty challenging charts, but I felt comfortable about my reading, and that was one of the things that he was impressed with. Oh, I could put anything in front of this guy and he can read it and interpret it, and so that was a big thing for him. And at the same time, all of those guys were just so gracious, and Sonny Burke and Ray Parker Jr. These guys were just like put their arms around me and said, "Welcome." So it was special, and from then I ended up working every day.
And it really actually hasn't stopped until this brief moment in time now.
Pretty much has just kept going until the last show that I did. I did the NAMM show with Earth, Wind, and Fire earlier in the year in January, and that was fantastic. And then I hosted the Jazz Weekender with Sandy Shore up in Carmel in February, and that was the last time playing with a band, and little did we know that everything was going to shut down for months and months and months, and so but I'm always forever grateful for it, even without the pandemic, every time I get to play with great musicians.
I want to ask about pandemic, and I know you started traveling a little bit recently and starting to do sessions. But before you do that, I just want to finish this thought that we're on right now, which is your website says that you've played on over 2,000 recordings. I'm guessing it's higher than that number. And you're considered one of the most recorded bass players in the history of music. My question is, when you take a moment to think about that, how does it make you feel?
Well, absolutely, it feels great to. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time kind of looking back, because I spend so much time looking forward, trying to grow and just keep getting better. So it's exciting to kind of take a look sometimes and say, wow, there's been a lot that's happened in the last 40 years. And I think if you do anything long enough, you'll get to the point where you can say, I have thousands of recordings behind me, and I was looking at the Fourplay, just Fourplay alone, the other day, kind of cataloging what we've done in the last 30 years and who the guitar players have been. And so 14 albums, and I think, over 150 songs just there. And it's fun to look at, the songs. Chuck Loeb was on the last batch.
Yeah.
And before Chuck, it was Larry Carlton. And then before Larry, it was Lee Ritenour.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to go through those. And just that little catalog alone has been fun to just take a little peek back over the 30 years and just listen.
Well, and fun memories, I would imagine too, Nate, because, I remember some of those early albums were recorded in your home studio.
Yeah, we had, and we all had home studios, and so whose ever song it was, I'll never forget it. Like we'd rehearse at their house or their studio, and if we got the song, they had to buy dinner for everybody that night. So, and just literally decades of really fun memories, and we didn't know that this quartet would, stand the test of time, and we'd travel all around the globe, and still it's one of the things I look forward to the most too, when we have a chance to play.
I just had the great pleasure of collaborating with Bob James on a song of mine, because one of the beautiful things about the pandemic, is right, is that people are home.
Right.
And Bob was on a guest on this podcast not so long ago, and he was talking about that he's just home playing to the squirrels. As you can picture him saying that. There's like, I'm just sitting here with nothing to do. So I said, well, I've got a song. And he played on it. It was just fantastic. And just to be able to have that experience that you've been enjoying for so many years with Bob was just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I wanted to ask you, by the way, one of the things that he did recently that I know really touched you, because he told me that, is that Bob made a very spontaneous and heartfelt video about Black Lives Matter. And we talked about it together because I thought it was really important for people to understand his intention in why he did it and why he was qualified to, as anybody is, of course, but why he was so deeply moved to do that. But I wanted to hear how that touched you and if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, one of the fun stories about Bob James, and congratulations for collaborating with him, because he's like, for me, modern day Mozart. Just constantly creating and has always, his music has been the soundtrack for my life, since college days.
Me as well.
I hear that from a lot of people.
Yeah.
And one of the fun stories that I learned is back in the day, his music was so soulful that Creed Taylor didn't want to put his picture on the front cover of the album because everybody thought he was Black, and like that was being used as an advantage. And I thought that, what a great story, because like, in a way, growing up as a Black person, sometimes it's been the other way around. Well, don't put your picture on because then, and I've been in groups where they said, okay, we can only have one Black person in the band, so it's
Nate, you and I were in a group together that came up.
Right. So which is, what a silly thing to be a prerequisite. It doesn't matter what your playing is all about or anything. It's just, oh yeah, you're only allowed one Black person in the band.
I agree. It's crazy.
And so I was really touched when I saw Bob's Black Lives Matter, tribute, and he just, just like everything else he does, he was very spontaneous, and he just held the iPhone up and gave a very touching. I was moved to tears because, Bob's been a brother to me, for decades now, and we hit it off ever since day one, and I just thought that was so powerful for him to make a statement. And in music we don't see or feel color. It's never an issue with us. So a lot of this that's been taking place now recently, that's come to the surface, has really been, for musicians, it's been like, wow, really? And because we just play, and we don't really choose to figure out if we're going to play based on the color of your skin, but it's your heart and the music that comes out of you that really is your voice and your signature. So I was really, really, really moved and I called him directly, just to thank him for that kind of support.
Thanks for just speaking honestly about that. I was really moved too. And that was the reason I reached out to him to ask him to be on the podcast. Certainly for his music. I mean, he's deeply influenced me as a musician as well. But I wanted to give him an opportunity to expand on that story for people to really understand the context of why he did it.
Yeah, and I think now it's even strange because even the phrase Black Lives Matter has turned into like okay, which side are you on? And
Right. How did that get
turned
loaded?
into very divisive.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm not 100% sure, but I can only articulate that I think the original intention is like, hey guys, Black Lives Matter too, like maybe if they put the word also at the end of it, it would distinguish the fact that, of course all lives matter, but Black Lives Matter too. And when we looked at, each one of my kids has on separate occasions sent me a Facebook post or something of a black kid getting shot in the middle of a street, or I'll remember my son when any of these multiple incidents have happened, Daddy, what's this all about? How come the police haven't been arrested for shooting a guy in the middle of the street, in broad daylight, or putting the knee on the neck until he died, and so those are questions that it's hard to articulate to your kids why, first of all, why these things are happening in the first place, and then why the justice doesn't serve us in a lot of these cases where, there's a slapper. And so I'm still a little bit nervous about the way the actual words Black Lives Matter have been politicized, interpreted, and sort of distorted.
I'm with you on that. I stand with you on that, Nate. And the word to or also is kind of a given, but apparently not for people that are already fearful, limited, perhaps racist, whatever varying degrees of discomfort that causes them. I would just encourage anybody, if you're uncomfortable with any of this, sit in that for a moment. Be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because I never, as a white man, I've never took that as that excludes anything about my life mattering. Never for a moment would that dawn on me that saying Black Lives Matter means my life doesn't matter.
It's up to the individual interpretation. I think Stevie Wonder has a pretty poignant post about that today, and he's very forceful in his explanation to people about about, of course, all lives matter, but if you're saying that, you're definitely missing the point.
Right. By the way, I would imagine that you, as a black father, had to have that talk with your kids when you taught them how to drive about what to do if they got pulled over.
Yeah, definitely. Put your hands on the steering wheel, speak very respectfully, no quick moves.
Right.
And it's the conversation you have to have just because of where we are.
When we were growing up, because you and I are the same age, Nate, my dad had that talk with me also, but it was never at risk or fear of me being killed. It was, to be respectful, to don't agitate somebody,
Absolutely.
But it wasn't a life-saving conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking a moment with me on that, because it does matter.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about touring right now and recording. We've talked about how this past, since February, March, our performing lives have come to a complete halt. Not our lives. Our lives have opened up in other ways, as you so beautifully said. But two questions. One is, you have just started this last couple of weeks to do a little bit of traveling, a couple of sessions with very strict protocol. And I'm wondering what that was like for you. And also, what's your thoughts on the state of our business, with touring? Because Broadway's shut. They've announced it. They're going to be closed maybe for another year. Live entertainment was one of the first things to be taken off the list. And it's one of the last things that's going to be able to come back in order to keep artists and fans safe. So what's your take on what's going on right now with these couple of experiences over the last few weeks, and then also any kind of predictions or thoughts on what you think is going to happen for all of us.
Yeah, I actually, it's hard to predict what's going to happen because it's all based on sort of what we do today. And the couple of uh, experiences I've had in the last few weeks of kind of dipping your toe back in the water to see what the temperature is have been, first of all, to be in a room with other musicians. I did a thing at Capitol Records the other day, and it's just like, a family reunion, and nothing greater, and everybody plays. It's almost like we've been so thirsty for that everything sounded so good and it felt so good.
Yeah.
And but even going to Capitol Records, we had to fill out these forms beforehand. There was a separate entrance that had where you had to get your temperature taken. One of the studios I went to, they spray your feet. Everything was covered in plastic, and all the precautions were taken. I'm doing something tomorrow where I have to go get a COVID test today over on the Warner Brothers lot, and again, we had questionnaires, and you can't even get on the lot without a pass that you've answered all these questions, and so I think if we very carefully try to get back into things, and should probably have the mindset that there's not really going to be going back to what we once knew, but a new sort of normal that's going to be the way we operate from this point forward. And that's I think the mentality we should have. I've a couple times, because we were supposed to be in Europe with Eric Clapton this summer. That was a big tour. I had a couple of weeks booked in Russia with an orchestra over there. Everything just got shut down and all the tours went away. But Eric and I have talked a couple times, and he said, yeah, let's just be patient until it's time to get back. And I think that's what is going to either make or break us. If we're not patient and everybody wants to just go back to what we once knew, and now I don't care, I'm ripping off the mask and I'm going for it. I think that's what's going to hold us back more than if we just say, okay, hang on, we have to grit our teeth, really clench our fists, be patient, and hang on for as long as it takes so that we can really get it under control. And this is something that the world should be doing, and not just in one community. Because if you're okay here in California, but then Arizona or the next state or city is not safe, then it doesn't do much good. So we all have to be on a global level, thinking the same way. And that's what I thought would really come out of this when it first happened. The entire globe shut down, and I thought, this is a reboot for the planet.
Right. Me too. I thought the same.
An opportunity for everybody to kind of say, hey, let's strip away anything that we have and get on the same page now. Leaders could talk to each other. It really, to me, felt like an opportunity to reboot the planet.
Yeah, it still is.
Right. Yeah.
It really still is. Why I'm so we both are. We've both been having trouble sleeping probably for the first time in our lives because of everything that's going on, not just pandemic wise and race wise, but politically in our country, the divisiveness. And again, I just want to say that I really implore and encourage everybody to vote. Whoever you want to vote for them. But if you think it doesn't matter, you are profoundly wrong.
Yeah. I just got John Lewis's book, and I was reading about it when you're talking about Bob's playing for squirrels. He used to go preach for the chickens.
He did.
And so they raised chickens. So he'd gather all the chickens around and practice preaching, and he said they agreed with everything he said. And the only thing they didn't say is amen, And, but when you read about the people that literally gave their lives so that we would have the right to vote, that alone is inspiration for me to just get everyone on board with voting,
Right.
because it does make a difference. There are consequences, and like you said, whoever you want to vote for, that's what we have the right, and that's what people died for, us to be able to do. So, what a gift,
It is. It's a gift. It's a responsibility, and it's something that really ought not be taken for granted. Because again,
Yeah,
our ancestors, our forefathers, our elders, not that long ago, fought for the right for people of color, for women to vote,
right.
for everybody to vote, to have a voice.
And so that we could have this amazing life that we live, and it's again getting back to my mom. She had to deal with the folks when they were driving their kids across country. You'd stop at a place and they wouldn't let you stay there, and they wouldn't let you eat there. And if you wanted to use the restroom or or have a drink, okay, there's the fountain for the colored people over there, or there's or no, you're not even welcome here. And I'm thinking, she was one of the nicest people you could ever want to meet, and all she taught us is just be nice. I mean, a very simple concept. And so voting is one of those things that if there's anything we have to complain about and we're saying, oh, how can we change this, have an effect? Voting is the instant thing that we can do. We have at our disposal right now, today. And I encourage everybody to just exercise that right, because it is a right.
Well said. Let's talk about you as an artist. You are now a solo artist the last couple of years, making finally fantastic records with your name on the front cover instead of on the back.
Thank you.
I pretty much know the answer to this, but I'm still going to ask the question. What took you so long, Nate?
Right. Well, that was the question I got asked every day. And pretty soon I said, I'm just going to make a record so I don't have to answer this question.
I'm sick of this question. Right.
But for the obvious reasons, I mean, I was blessed to work with some of the greatest people in the industry. And in this business, again, when you get calls from people like Quincy Jones or Phil Collins or Eric Clapton or Kenny Loggins, Anita Baker, all these great people that I've admired from a distance for so long, and they ask you to either come in and record or tour, that's what I spent.
Or co-write. Own it.
Or co-write. Yeah. Absolutely. And so that is what I spent decades doing before I was able to actually carve out enough time to go in and make records of my own.
Well, it does take a lot of time. Yeah, you do know that. You've discovered, but it's time.
Yeah, we understand.
We
that.
do, but time well spent. I love your solo projects. I think it's so great. And also, I think it's so cool that you have been doing duets with your son as well, which is wonderful. He's a gifted piano player.
Oh, thank you. He's so much fun. And I discovered when he was 5 years old, I was playing a little game, play the note Daddy plays, and I would play a note on the bass and he would just play it. And then, so at 5, I discovered he had perfect pitch, and he has amazing ears. I mean, he can hear a song, he can hear a chord and pretty much go pick out the notes in it. And very, very gifted player, but his heart comes out in his playing as well. So on both of my projects, I invited him to do duets with me, and he came and did a wonderful job. Actually, at that age, I think he was 13 when we did my first record. At that age, I would have been so nervous in the studio. He came in, I think first, second take, he nailed his part. And to this day, we have the most fun playing, and we're even working on some material for a duo album.
Oh, that's going to be great. That's great.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun together.
Speaking of working with icons, we shared a very memorable experience working with two icons, Dick Van Dyke and also Alan Bergman with Dave Grusin. Really fun, inspired project. What do you remember most about those two sessions that we did?
Well, just all of us being so in awe of those icons. And, you know, we watched the Dick Van Dyke Show after school every day, right. And memorized all the theme song. And so he's kind of like part of our DNA, so to be in the studio with him, and he was as animated, sharp, and funny as ever. And same with Alan Bergman, who has written just so many classic, iconic songs for so many iconic people. It's just always great. And I always love just working with people that have been around a lot longer than I have, because then it's just a chance to ask them questions and pick their brains about, how they've managed to navigate through life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great experience. And one of the things I remember most about doing it, besides how musically exciting it was and fulfilling, but the band that we had put together for both of those sessions consisted of everybody who had major credits, who have worked with a lot of iconic artists. And every single one of us had that same experience that you just expressed. We were both just kind of in awe, because it was in our DNA to play with Dave Grusin and just that kind of playing, to hear a writer like Alan Bergman sing his own music is incredibly special when an artist does their own music. Dick Van Dyke, again, it's just embedded in our DNA and our culture. So I shared that with you, and we all did. And I found that kind of, I guess not surprising, but it was endearing to me that we all had the same sense of wonder of being able to do that together.
You were a great MD, and
Thank you.
Of course, we worked together when you were the musical director for the Byron Allen Show.
Yeah.
And we'd go report over at NBC Studios.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun, too. I remember, that's when I really got to appreciate you as a musical director and your musicianship on something that was really, you were on the firing line. And when the lights went on and the cameras were rolling, got it done. It was really good fun.
Yeah, it was for me as well. And I couldn't have done it without all of you, because you all had my back, and I always ran interference for you guys to make sure nobody got hurt. Nobody was bleeding. And but it was a really wonderful team. I really have fond memories of that. As a matter of fact, one of the memories I have that always makes me smile when I think about it was when you did magic tricks on the show. Because not everybody knows that you have some other skill sets. And one of them is doing close-up magic. And I'd never seen you get nervous before, like playing in front of millions of people. But you were a little nervous, but you did great. And do you remember that? It was really fun.
Oh, absolutely. It was good fun. It was a fun opportunity to do something. And I was definitely out of my comfort zone, because, I could play, in front of a million people and be pretty comfortable. But to do magic in front of a national television audience was kind of tricky. But we had a good time, and I liked that the show was kind of that versatile, and they were open to those kind of ideas from the band.
Me too. That's what I was told it was going to be going in, that when we put this band together, that everybody was really not just a band member, but a cast member. It was an ensemble show. Right. And I love that we got to feature everybody in ways that were kind of special, and personal, as well as not just musically,
Absolutely.
but just, everybody got to talk on mic and had their moments. And
right.
It was, we definitely had some fun times and took no prisoners. One of the things I really appreciated about our band that we had was that regardless of which artist we played with or the style of music, there was, first of all, there was always at least one person in the band who had played on the original recording. So, it sort of was like a weekly game of, all right, funny. who was on this track. But the other thing is that we all had not just the understanding and the capability, the musical chops to do it, but the desire to honor the record. To like not make it sound like our version of that song.
Right.
We were sort of as a whole a chameleon stylistically, where we could do something with MC Hammer, and then we could do something with Whitney Houston or with anybody. We really jumped genres of music and did it in a way that was very generous of all of you to just honor the song.
Yeah, and I think that's what being such a big fan of music, for such a long time, I've always felt like, whatever position I was in or whoever I was playing with, whether it's Al Jarreau or George Benson, whether it's a jazz situation, foreplay or rock and roll situation, Elton John, Clapton, Sting. It's always fun because I'm such a fan of music, and I never really categorize music except good or bad music, But basically, I just enjoy so much, and that's what's been the most fun part about having a career where you meet your heroes and you get to play music with with great players.
Yeah, me too. It's one of the things I cherish. One of the biggest gifts that I've experienced in my life. And, speaking of that, I read a quote about you, Nate, that, and I'd probably get it wrong, but it was basically that you feel or understand that you were born with a gift and that it's something that you've not wasted it. I mean, obviously you're gifted. You are a natural musician and you're a very well-trained musician, but how do you view the whole package, gift and talent and skill and focus and discipline, and what's your take on all of that?
Yeah, I feel like, and the beauty of that gift is I discovered it in the church. I picked up my first bass guitar at Christ the King Church in San Diego, and so I'll never forget just putting that on and feeling the power of music and discovering this gift that I've spent every day since then trying to hone or make better. And it's just like, I believe life is our gift from God, and what we do with it is our gift to God, So what we do with our gifts is really part of the responsibility and something that we're constantly trying to discover. And so the thing that I wake up with every day is just a sense of gratitude for everything that picking up this instrument has given me, and all the places around the world that I've been able to travel to, and all the people that I've been able to meet. And just on a very simple level, those things just, to me, are things that I'll never take for granted, and I'll always strive to kind of keep developing.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you, because you've worked with so many artists and it touches on what you're talking about right now, is what are some of the common qualities that you've seen in many of these successful artists that you've collaborated with? And what have you discovered about success during your years as a solo artist?
Well, I realized that music is a gift, basically. It becomes soundtrack, and we know that we have music that where you were when you had your first kiss, or or when you were there's things that music kind of outline in our lives that I feel like there are time periods. In my college days, I remember what I was listening to on the way to school, and I feel just like it's always a work in progress. It's always something I'm working on, but the thing that has become most important to me is just the relationships. And I think I was at dinner with Phil Collins once, and a young girl, she was probably 9 or 10 years old, came up and asked him for his autograph. Now, when you're at dinner and you're eating, and it could go a number of ways, and Phil signed it, and he said, "Thanks for asking," and I thought to myself, biggest star on the planet, and he thanks a young girl for asking for his autograph, and can you imagine for her life, she gets to tell the story of a nice guy that and I've been in situations where it went the other way, where they were eating, and then so that person has to remember how they were treated. And so, obviously I like the kinder, gentler approach, to life. And all of these guys that we were speaking about, Quincy Jones, and the Eric Claptons of the world, these are some of the nicest human beings you ever want to meet, and for me that, and they have a very high work ethic. And for me, that just becomes a model for how to be.
Speaking of relationships, you've had a really wonderful long-term relationship with Yamaha, both in
Yes.
recording on their label, being a Yamaha artist, but also developing the 80s bass lines and, instruments and various things. So can you just tell everybody about how that's been for you and why you appreciate them so much? Why it's such a good match, actually?
Yeah, coming up on 40 years next year, I think. Abraham Laboriel was one of the first guys that put a Yamaha bass in my hands, and first of all, he was like my idol on bass, especially when I moved to LA. He was the guy doing all the recording, and his sound and spirit and feeling. I used to go to the Baked Potato and watch him. As a bass player, it's hard not to be infected by Abe's charisma and spirit. It's just infectious, and then you just turn into the guy, and so he sat down with me early on a couple times and showed me some things, and literally that I use to this day, and couldn't have been sweeter. He's a guy that when he asks you, how's your heart, he really means how's your heart, and so he was at A&M with Lee Ritenour and Dave Grusin, and his bass was just cutting through, and of course has everything to do with his playing. But when I asked him about it, he showed it to me, and it was a Yamaha bass, and he said there's a guy in Japan named Hagi who's you should look up when you get there. And I just happened to be on the way there with Lee Ritenour the next month. Looked up Hagi, put one of the basses in my hands, and it played so beautifully, and he let me take it home. And that was the beginning of the relationship. That was 1981. And ever since then, I've been playing Yamaha basses.
They really suit you. And Abraham, too. But, the difference is, Abraham has a lot of basses. You do as well. I see some behind you. But primarily, you're a Yamaha player. Abraham plays a lot of different basses, although I'm always asking him to bring his Yamahas to the session. And by the way, it's kind of beautiful full circle. When you left the Byron Allen show because you were on tour with Eric Clapton and Anita Baker, and Abraham Laboriel stepped into your shoes and filled your space, which was kind of really cool on so many levels.
Incredible. Yeah. It's for full circle. And he's my neighbor. Also here in Tarzana, and we have he always jokes about the distinction of bass players married to pediatricians that live in Tarzana, which we both are.
Right, Lynn's a doctor as well as Anita. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we always joke about that, but the other thing is just developing a signature bass with Yamaha. One of these is right behind me. It allowed me to have, a bass that I could actually take with me everywhere I go and be confident that it's going to get the job done. And the company is great. Again, the relationships that I've had there span 4 decades. And that's why when Chris Giro started the Yamaha Entertainment Group label, it was just such a natural progression as well. He asked me if I'd join on, and of course we've made a few records together. And so from a relationship standpoint, which again I feel is so important, beyond just the notes that we play, I think they're a wonderful company, and we've had nothing but good success.
I've heard funny stories from sound engineers, I'm not going to mention names, at some of the festivals that you've played. When you walk in and you bring your Yamaha upright bass, that it blows away all the other bass players, 500-year-old German upright basses and everything, just sonically. They just love that instrument. I do too. I mean, it records beautifully.
Well, thanks. I've heard that from some engineers, and when you're at a place like the Hollywood Bowl and you're trying to amplify an acoustic instrument to reach 17,000 people, it's a very challenging thing with a microphone in front of a bass, a vintage instrument. It could be a Stradivarius, but you're miking that. And the thing I like about the Yamaha, especially the new silent upright, is it's modeled and you plug it in. So now you don't have any of the sort of outside external forces working against you acoustically, and they've controlled the sound and tried to model the sound of a real upright as much as possible. Is it an actual upright? No, but for those kind of situations where you're playing to those kind of audiences, I feel a lot more comfortable taking that instrument in there.
Mm-hmm. Before we get to our closing questions, Nate, I wanted to also just talk quickly about mentoring and teaching, because you have an Artist Works bass lesson series, and I know that at points of your career have been available, I'm not sure if you still are, for mentoring, for Zoom. If people want to know anything from you, to learn from you, what are the best resources?
Well, thanks for the Artist Works online school of bass that I have has been really good, that I can be one-on-one. They have a video exchange program where the students send you a video of themselves playing, and then you critique and send back notes on their position of their fingers or what have you. And so that's been the closest way for me to give advice to students. It's really a great program that they have going over there, and we've had a lot of students over almost the past 10 years from around the world that I can kind of have a one-on-one. It's almost like a FaceTime or a Zoom situation, but you actually send in a video, and then it gets processed and critiqued by the teachers. So that's been one way for me. And then, whenever I can get back out on the road, I have so many friends that I used to meet and used to, just getting together backstage or whenever we can. Time is one of the biggest things biggest challenges, as you know, for me. We've been trying to put this together for well over a year now.
That's true.
And I'm time challenged because of all the wonderful things that are going on in my life, So if I can work at my time management a little better, that's even better for me as well.
I actually was curious. I mean, how do you manage your time? Because from the outside, you seem to do it fairly well. I mean, you have managed to have a family life, personal life, and a very active and inspired career. How do you do it? Or you just kind of do the best you can along the way?
Well, getting by on about 4 or 5 hours of sleep has helped, but that makes, it makes for a long day. But the thing I try to do is first of all, just, every morning start with a meditation and prayer. And that really sets up the day for managing everything that's going to be coming my way. And whether it's musically, personally, spiritually, physically, monetarily, whatever it is, that kind of gets me prepared. And the other thing is that I have really good people in my life. I have a wonderful assistant, Debbie Johnson, who
Debbie's still working with you for years.
Debbie's still working
great.
with me for years and years. Yeah. And she's just been amazing. Yeah. I don't know how I could exist without her. And Anita helps me out tremendously around the house and keeping everything in order and just keeping sort of inventorying everything about my life. So it's great. I'm blessed there. And then just I try to stay as organized. Anita's brothers used to have a phrase that I always remember. If you don't handle your business will handle you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And so it's not only do we have to be responsible for playing all the right notes, but basically everything else that comes with that in our lives. And that's to me the challenge that I wake up for in the morning. And a lot of times I'm so excited it's hard to get to sleep at night because of what's on the horizon.
Mm-hmm. What inspires you, Nate, in art and in life?
Creativity and in art, just mastery over your gift. So again, I'm inspired when I get to work with people that have mastered their instrument to the point where I can learn something from them, and that's one of the things that to this day, I continue to try to grow and contribute to.
What lessons about art and life have you learned along your journey? And also, how's your perspective changed on that as you've gotten older?
The one thing that I've I've learned, and it stays the same, is that a good work ethic. There's not too much more valuable than that. I mean, a lot of people nowadays, they want to go straight to the top. They want to have the number one hit, or they want to have, they want to have all the people following them or whatever their social is. You just want to go straight to that thing without actually putting in the work. And there's no way to get around the fact that the hard work has to be done. You crawl before you walk. And there's a bit of heavy lifting that just goes with the territory. Some people are fortunate enough to get a break without doing it, but most of the time it's that hard work. And the other thing that, again, that my mom and dad, I learned from them is kindness, respect, generosity, those very simple things.
All great tips. And it actually leads to my two closing questions. And you've actually started to answer them. One of them is, what does making it mean to you? Because this show is called Making It. What does it mean to you both personally and professionally? But also, can you share 3 tips for what's driven the success in your career? Are there 3 that you would say could really help people just pinpoint what's worked for you?
Yeah, I would think making it is number one. If there's, like, sometimes, as we know in music, there's a piece that it challenges us that we have to learn, and you want to learn how to play it. So however much work it takes to get that under your fingers and your chops by practicing, it pays dividends. There's no way that if you don't put in the time that you can lose. So I say put in the time, number one. And again, getting back to that, just putting in the hard work. There's not really too many shortcuts to that. And third, again, the human element to me is one of the most important things. We said goodbye to our dear friend Chuck Loeb a few years ago. And, not only did we lose one of the greatest composers and instrumentalists, but we lost one of the greatest human beings. And for me, he was the total package of humanity, plus his virtuosity and his musicianship and his heart. Everything that he brought to this day still affects me.
I know what a loss that was for you. Chuck was an amazing person, an amazing musician. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, so.
Nate, my final question is, at this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
With everything that I know to be true now, I would just tell my younger self to wake up and make a difference and do as much as you can while you have breath in your body to make a difference, to create, and to just basically help make dreams come true for as many people as possible.
Beautiful. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you, Terry.
Thanks, Nate.
Thanks, Terry. Take care. God bless.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woolman.